what caused you and your organization to kind of take a look at DMARC, in the first place?
Primarily, it was really about we had identified the gap in our email security posture. And yes, we've many organizations, we've got multiple layers wrapped around email security, but there was one piece that we were missing, which was DMARC. And when we looked at it, we obviously ascertained what the business benefits are. But primarily, it was about fundamentally improving our email security, because as we all know, email is the biggest vector out there from an attack point of view. So we needed to plug that gap, if you like. And the goal really of the technology team within Travers Smith is to use technology where we can to protect our employees, our clients, our business partners, and ultimately our brand and our reputation.
Yeah, it's interesting. As an information security manager, I assume you're not technically responsible for your email infrastructure per se. Was this really a security-driven initiative? Was it a corporate initiative based on security identifying that you needed to stop your domain from being spoofed, without your permission? Was it a joint effort between you and some of your colleagues? How did that work?
Yeah, I mean, not to take all the glory, but it was primarily driven by the information security team. We did, obviously, we worked quite closely with our infrastructure team, but they were more about just keeping the lights on from an exchange point of view. They weren't really that interested in, what are we doing from an email gateway security point of view. So it was really driven by us, and then essentially we needed to get that management buy-in, present that business case to the firm, to obviously highlight the gap and the risk to the firm, but then also B, how we can go about mitigating that and remediating that. So that was, I think, a key driver for this, to get stakeholder buy-in. That and obviously enabled us to get the budget and the resource to be able to go ahead and plan for this.
That's great. And kind of to build on that, how did Travers Smith look at the DMARC project? Was it viewed as a cost avoidance project or kind of a cost savings project?
It was more of we came from a cost avoidance point of view. We knew, because we had this gap, we were vulnerable to that risk pretty much on a daily basis. And given the level of, as I said, the level of phishing and business email compromise and fraud attempts, that we knew it was a matter of when we'd be impacted by maybe business email compromise or a client falling for an impersonation email or whatever the case may be. Yes, like a lot of firms now, we looked at insurance, but that was more of a reactive measure than a proactive measure. And particularly from a reputational perspective, if we had a client or a business partner that was successfully phished by an impersonation attempt from our domain, then that obviously would have potentially an impact on our revenue, and they may not want to conduct business with us in the future. So again, that was one of the key drivers from a cost perspective as well.
That's really good feedback and interesting to kind of, I think the way you looked at DMARC is probably not dissimilar to other firms, in your space, as well as, companies in general. And I'm sure as you were kind of looking at DMARC, I'm sure you probably realized that, DMARC is an open spec. It's been around since about 2012. So certainly, as an open spec, it's possible for a company to, try to do DMARC on their own. Did you guys look at that? Did you, did you test, receiving DMARC reports yourself internally just to see what the data looked like? Just curious if you tried to do DMARC on your own, or at least thought about doing it on your own first.
Yeah, so initially we definitely thought about, right, could we do this in-house? But after looking at some of the case studies that we saw from other firms and speaking to other peers, both in legal but outside of legal, unless you had a big team internally to manage this, then trying to do it with a very small team, and there's only two of us at Travers Smith in security, that wasn't really achievable for us. It'd be huge resource drain on us, and it would deflect away from other key projects as well that we were trying to deliver. So really, that's where we made the decision that look, we need to find a partner and a vendor and a solution to build a relationship with, and essentially for them to help deliver DMARC reject. So again, we can focus on other higher or equally as high projects and improve our ongoing posture. And that's when, sorry, Brian, that's when Valimail or Gradian brought to our attention the Valimail product.
No, sorry to interrupt you there. I was just wondering, once you decided, this probably wasn't something you wanted to do on your own, and you started looking at the landscape of DMARC vendors, what kind of was your selection criteria, or what was important to you as once you decided that you'd like to use a vendor? What were kind of the key drivers for you in the selection process?
Some of them were obviously we needed to comply with the relevant regulations and obviously including GDPR, so that was one thing. We had a cloud-first strategy, so again we were looking for a platform in the cloud and that it would integrate easily with Office 365 because we were going on that journey as well. We wanted, as I said, very minimal input from our own internal team, and we wanted that vendor to do all the heavy lifting. Obviously, it had to be cost effective and it had to align with our budget. We also wanted it to obviously highlight, identify any shadow IT. We found that when we did the 14-day report analysis, we did find that the usual departments had gone off and tried to procure their own email marketing services, which was great from our point of view. And it just, when we showed some of that report to some of those departments, I think they understood that, yeah, we can't continue on like this. If we try and do that in the future, then obviously emails are not going to be delivered because they won't be DKIM signed and they'll fail DMARC. So that was really one of the benefits that came out of the process, was getting other business functions and departments within Travers to understand a little bit about security, but when they are looking to onboard new services, that they need to involve their information security team.
Yeah, that's kind of been my experience in the space as well, is that most everyone in the organization understands that you have a corporate Exchange system or Office 365 or G Suite, but there's just less awareness and visibility into all of the other services you might use, such as an HR platform, payroll, marketing automation, marketing, email marketing. We catalog over 6,000 online services that send email today, and there's new ones being spun up all the time. Was it just when you did the assessment process, kind of the 14-day trial, was that important for you to be armed with the data to go back to the organization to say, hey, in addition to Microsoft, we have all of these other mail streams. Some of them we did know about, but then some of them, like you mentioned, were shadow IT. Was it important for you to get that data to go back to the organization to get the business case approved to move forward?
Yeah, it definitely helped. I mean, it gave some of the senior management an idea of the kind of spoofed email traffic that goes on that they have no real visibility of, and neither do we, to be honest. So it was really good from our point of view, but also from this understanding from the senior management point of view. And it definitely, if you're putting forward a business case, I would always recommend that if you've got the time, and it takes very little time, do the 14-day trial, particularly with Valimail, because it is so easy to do, and it gives you great insights to your email traffic.
Yeah, I think it's a very low lift on the part of the organization. A DMARC record, implementing a DMARC record, pointing it to the Valimail platform should hopefully be a very short process, 5 to 15 minutes ideally. And then, as Darragh mentioned, providing back the information the organization needs to determine a way forward was part of that. So I think, to my knowledge, Valimail is somewhat unique in the DMARC space in that we believe so much in the technology and also Gradian's ability to work with customers that will actually guarantee DMARC enforcement. Was that, how important was that to you as an organization? Did it factor into the decision, in any way?
Yeah, it did. I think it did in probably a couple of ways. Obviously, having that statement and that, if you like, rubber stamp guarantee, if we didn't, for whatever reason, get there, then obviously we wouldn't lose any money. But because we weren't putting a very much resource into the project, then we would lose very little resource time either. So that was a big point for us. But also then we could again go back to senior management to say, look, you know, we've got a guarantee here. We're not going to lose money if they don't deliver. So again, that helps with definitely helps with the business case. And again, if you like, it draws a line in the sand. And because I've heard again so many stories where people, you know, have great intentions of getting to DMARC reject, but they only ever get to P equals none, and they don't even get to quarantine. So having that hard deadline, if you like, or line in the sand to try and hit, does definitely help. And then if you don't hit that, obviously, then you've got your stakeholders saying, well, why hasn't the project been delivered? What are we getting for value out of this product? So it definitely helps.
How was the implementation process? Was it as straightforward as pointing your DMARC, SPF, and DKIM records to the Valimail platform and then just saying, these are the services we want to authorize, and these are the ones that are shadow IT and we don't want to authorize? What was your experience like in that regard?
It really was that easy, honestly. I did, as you said, I had a little bit of skepticism when Damien was pitching it to us. Couldn't quite believe it, but yeah, it was really that simple. We made a couple of DNS changes. That was really quickly to do. We set up DKIM signing for our email gateway, and then we pretty much handed it over to Gradian and Valimail, who did the rest. They spoke to all of the third parties that we'd approved as senders on behalf of our domain. We didn't need to get involved. So Gradian spoke directly to those third parties and ensured they were set up in the platform. So from our point of view, it was just a quick catch up every now and again to see how we're going. How are we looking? Are we on our target date for enforcement? Are we not? Anything else that we need to do? But no, it was really literally a one-step, one-click process, which is, brought us back to our requirements. And this is why one of the reasons why we picked Gradian and Valimail was to, take all of that off our desk.
We hear about things, obviously, when things go wrong. When things are going well, we don't hear as much about it. But any kind of organizational feedback now that you've been in enforcement, and sometimes, obviously, no impact to existing mail flows is good feedback, and that if you don't hear anything that's gone wrong, that's feedback in itself. But any kind of feedback you've gotten from colleagues or anybody that's really noticed the protection or feedback from clients at all?
I think, in short, not a whole lot, to be honest. And I kind of take that as a positive. As you said, we've implemented something in the background that not a lot of people are aware of. It's not impacted on service in any way, shape, or form. But it is in the background protecting them from, as you said, phishing emails, business email compromise, fraud attempts. I think what we have seen from certainly senior management is that they are now starting to talk to clients about it. So clients want to know more and more what we're doing to protect their information, their data. So this is one of the things that now partners and certainly senior management in the firm can talk to clients about. Oh, did you know we're one of the 10 or 20% of the top 100 law firms in the UK to have DMARC enforcement? Well, what does that mean for a client? Any email you get from us from traverssmith.com, you can trust because of that. Everything else you should treat with caution and suspicion. So I think that's probably the biggest piece of feedback we've had. I think from staff, they just expect us to do these things in the background. They expect technology to protect them. And we do a lot around awareness because there's no silver bullet out there that can detect and protect every single phishing attempt. But it does go a long way in doing that. I think, yes, it would be nice to hear back from clients and, to tell their maybe partners that your technology team are absolutely fantastic. They've reduced the number of phishing emails I get from your firm in my inbox, which is great. But yeah, not as yet, but maybe one day.
Amen. Maybe, Darragh, if you had to describe this whole experience with Gradian and Valimail, in either one word or one sentence, maybe, what would that be for you?
I think the one word I would probably use is seamless. And it literally was seamless. And we could trust in both Gradian and Valimail in delivering what they promised at the outset. So yeah, believe it, it can be that easy.